Okay, so today we're going to look at flying a VFR or Visual Flight Rules flight between Jersey and Guernsey in the Channel Islands off the south coast of the UK. We are going to use the air traffic control system that's built into Microsoft Flight Simulator to control our flight, and just to see what happens in the simulator when you're using it, you know, what is asked of you and what you have to do in response. So if anybody's been playing with ATC and didn't quite understand what was going on, I'll try and explain everything along the way. Hopefully it will be instructive. We are going to use the basic Cessna with the G1000 that everybody gets with Flight Sim. So I'm not using any special aeroplane that nobody's got. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is when we choose the Cessna, we are going to go to customization in the simulator. And the reason for doing this is we get to fill in our tail number. So this is the lettering that appears on our aircraft within the simulator. Our call sign, this is what we will be referred to as by air traffic control, and our flight number. And we can leave the flight number blank, and I'm going to do so. Interestingly, that's emptied the tail number. So I'll put that back in there. That seems to be a bug in the menu. Okay, that's interesting. Show the tail number on, so that's whether it repaints your aircraft or not. And we'll say OK to that, and we come back out of here, and we're going to start the flight. So we go fly. So this is going to put me on the ground at Jersey Airport. So while that's loading, let's go and have a little look at Little Nav Map. So we're going to spawn on parking area number 5 at Jersey. If we zoom out, we can have a quick look at the flight plan. We're going to fly from Jersey over to Guernsey. So notice I haven't put any kind of detailed flight plan in. This is just the basic information. So we'll show information for Jersey. So that comes up over here. So we can see the QNH is 1039, our destination, but we can remember to use the B key to do that. Oh look, somebody has spawned using transmitter at Guernsey. We'll ignore that for the moment. Okay, so here we go in Flight Simulator, and it's loaded the live weather. I've modified the time though, because it's currently night time at my time of recording. So ready to fly. So here we are on the ground. So our primary way of accessing the air traffic control system is to press the scroll lock key on the keyboard, or you can come up here and click on the ATC icon, the second icon in if you've not modified the menu, the small picture of the control tower. So when we click on that, a window pops up, and you can drag the window around and you can make it any size you want. So we can make it smaller so it fits over there, and it's telling us the radio is off. In other words, we can't talk to air traffic control because we haven't switched on anything in the aircraft yet. And remember, this is kind of a virtual view of us talking and listening to the radio. So let's get the yokes out of the way so we can see what we're doing. First things first then, we'll go and power up the aircraft. So in the Cessna, it's the battery switches, then the avionics switches. You get the warning on the Garmin about we're using voltage, or we're causing a draw on the batteries because the engine isn't running yet, so it's not generating any power. So first things first, we go and check the fuel is correct, the parking brake is on, the fuel valve is in, which means it's enabled, the mixture is set to rich. I'm just going to go and check something as well. This may be common to some people. I have got a throttle quadrant which requires different profiles for different aeroplanes, so I'm just going to go and double check that. You may not have to do this at all. So I'm going to flick through the different aircraft profiles I've got on here, and I should find somewhere the C172. There it is. And I can apply and save that and go back and resume. So now I should find my throttle quadrant is actually controlling the mixture and the throttle, which is perfect. We'll just have a quick check outside as well to make sure. I'm going to give the controls a stir around. So we've got the ailerons are working, the elevators are working, and the rudder is working. That's perfect. Let's go back inside the aircraft. You can see I've powered the aircraft up, and immediately the ATC panel has come to life. In other words, we can use it. But we're going to switch the engine on first and get the aircraft ready. So beacon light on, navigation light on, strobe light on, pitot heat on, and that should be good to start the engine. So let's go, and you should be able to hear that engine ticking away in the background now. Obviously it's in front of us, but we can't see the propeller very easily. You can kind of just see the stripes of the propeller of it whizzing around. Here, there you go, yeah, you can see it. Okay, and obviously you can see the engine gauges have come to life and fuel flow. We're on the parking brake, so we can rev it up and pull it back again, and you see the oil pressure raised there. It's all looking good. Okay, so we are really ready to taxi already. So we are going to tune Jersey ground on 121905. So what this really means is ATC is going to automatically control, or the ATC panel is going to automatically control the comm radios for us. If we were flying along using something like VATSIM or IVAO, we would have to potentially control the comm radios ourselves, just like in the real aircraft, where you would be changing frequencies here and switching between standby and active frequencies. As soon as we click on an option in the ATC panel, it tunes the radio for us. So if we tune Jersey ground, it's made 121905 the active frequency immediately. And we can now go and talk to the controllers. Before we do so, I'm just going to go and check, so you get to hear things nicely, how loud I've got the simulator coming through. So let's go for 75% on this. And close that. We don't want it absolutely as loud as possible, because then you wouldn't be able to hear me over it very easily. So having said we want to talk to Jersey ground, we get a raft of options have come up. So these are the things we can ask Jersey ground. So we want to depart straight out. But if we have a look, we could also say we want to depart to the north, because we're going to Guernsey. Yeah? So depart north.
Jersey ground, Cessna Golf, Juliet Bravo Echo Kilo with Oscar request taxi for takeoff north departure.
So what this means is this is us answering them.
Short of runway 08 using taxiway Alpha Bravo 2 Bravo. Contact tower on 120.455 when ready.
So this is us asking ATC when we click the button, and this is ATC responding. When we say with Oscar, that refers to the weather we are reading. I'm not going to get into that today, but you'll often see some, like with Charlie, with Bravo, with Delta, throughout the day the letter representing the weather update changes. So you're confirming to the control tower the version of the weather that you're reading, or that you have to hand. So it's requesting taxi for takeoff north departure, and this is the tower. And there you go, because I have not answered yet. They are asking, did I hear their response? So they have said taxi hold short runway 08 using taxiway A, B2 and B. Contacting tower when I'm ready. So I'll say acknowledge.
Taxiing hold short runway
I understand.
08 via taxiway Alpha Bravo 2 Bravo Cessna Bravo Echo Kilo.
So when an air traffic controller communicates with you, they will name your aircraft and your call sign and then give you an instruction. And when you respond, you repeat their instruction back to them and then repeat your call sign. This is a little bit naughty in that this is it's shortening the call sign on the immediate response. Normally you would have a full call sign. When you do your first response to the tower, you would repeat exactly how they have referred to you. But from then on, the same controller may refer to you as a shortened version. And if they have referred to you by the shortened version, then you can then use it after that. Okay, this is all done for you in Flight Sim though, so you don't really need to worry about any of that. So we need to go and taxi via Alpha, B2 and Bravo. So let's go and have a look at the runway map. So they're saying B2 and Bravo. So we just leave here directly basically. They're saying go to here. This is Alpha, around the edge of here. but we don't need to do that, or we're facing the wrong way to go out that way, if that makes any sense. If we go and have a look at ourselves on the ground. Yeah. If we were facing that way, that would make sense. Unless we do want to taxi out and come in, that's probably following the lines, that's the correct method. So if we were going to be pushed back, we would be pushed back and then we could go through and down there. Okay, so let's do that. Let's go spin round just in the aircraft and we'll go and get into the position of the holding point for runway 08. So we come off the parking brake. So we release the parking brake. I've got that mapped to a button, but I just wanted to show you where that is. Increase the throttle. And we're rolling. Full right steering. Once you're rolling, you don't need as much input. So we're going to follow the painted line. We're going to press space to sit up in our seat so we can see a little more easily. Follow the painted line. Yeah, quite often you need a little bit of power to get the aircraft rolling, but once it has some momentum, you can cut the throttle back. Often to tick over, and tick over is enough to keep you rolling in many aircraft. Okay, so we're going to take this next turn. Going to touch the brakes a little bit. I'm not turning as tightly as I would like. So let's have a look at the map while we're rolling. So we are heading along B2, then onto Bravo, or Bravo 2, then onto Bravo, and then we'll be on the edge of the runway. Whoa! Good job I spotted that on the map. The torque of the engine had started to make us move, so we're just counteracting that. Actually no, that's not the torque, that's the wind. So let's go and switch the wind on our primary flight display, just so we get that indication. So yeah, we're getting wind is coming from the right at 9 knots. So if you imagine wind comes from the right, it's hitting the tailplane and pushing the tailplane to the left, which is pushing the nose to the right, because the aircraft is rotating on the wheels. Okay, so we're just slowly rolling round onto the runway, and we will hold short once we're on the runway. So taxi, hold short run. Oh, I should have held short then. I'll hold here. Request takeoff clearance. So I've just clicked on talk to the tower, which has retuned my radio to the tower, and now I'm going to request takeoff clearance.
Jersey Tower, Cessna Golf.
So this is
Juliet
me
Bravo,
talking
Echo
to
Kilo
the
at
tower.
runway 08 ready for departure to the north.
Cessna Golf, Juliet Bravo Echo Kilo, altimeter tree 0.68, wind 040 at 15. Departure to the north approved. Cleared for takeoff runway 08.
Okay, so we will acknowledge that we've heard them.
Cleared for takeoff runway 08.
So what they basically said,
Bravo, Echo Kilo.
they've called our call sign. They've told us the QNH setting for the radio, so so for the altimeter, so we can press B, and you saw the altimeter correct itself. So we are now 370 feet over the sea. Wind is from 40 degrees, 15 knots. Departure to the north approved. In other words, we can take off and then turn north. Cleared for takeoff runway 08. So when we take off, we are going to use heading mode immediately, but then switch to nav mode, which will start us following our flight plan, which is already programmed in, remember, because we chose the departure and destination point in the flight sim menus. Okay, so first things first, before we do anything, let's go and correct the heading then on the autopilot to the direction of the runway, which is 80 degrees, because its runway is 08. So that corresponds with 80. So we've corrected the heading to 8. We'll put the autopilot into heading mode before we switch it on even. We can even switch on, or we can configure the climb out to say go to 1,000 feet at a vertical speed of, vertical speed of 500 feet a minute. So what we've done there is set a target altitude of 1,000 feet at a vertical speed of 500 feet a minute. And you can see then we've got heading mode ready, vertical speed mode ready. So let's go and line up, and we're cleared for takeoff. We can just roll. So the wind is now coming from the right and trying to make the plane turn left, because the wind is hitting the tailplane, trying to make it spin on the axis of its wheels, if that makes sense. So we're holding right rudder all the way down the runway, and the simulator has paused. What a wonderful point for it to pause, just as the plane was getting light on its wheels. I've seen this a lot from Flight Sim recently with it pausing. There's some serious problems. I mean, we're in a very low definition area of scenery. There's not many aeroplanes around. I'm on a very high speed internet connection. I've got very strong hardware. And here we go. So we'll repeat that. So the flaps are down and rotate. So we can now go and switch on the autopilot. So we'll go and press AP, and it will follow the instructions we gave it. So it's flying 80 degrees and climbing at 500 feet a minute to 1,000 feet. And we get to admire the scenery as we fly out. We have to keep an eye on this chart of where we are in relation to the turn, so what we will do is switch to nav mode. But notice that the CDI, I have to go back, and we can acknowledge the indication. That's basically saying off you go. We have to switch the CDI to GPS mode, otherwise nav mode on the autopilot won't follow the track. So I'm going to press nav. So the autopilot is now in GPS mode. The nav button did that. So if you want to know all about the differences between VOR mode and GPS mode on the CDI, which is the course deviation indicator, which is this, I've got another video where I explained, or a couple of videos where I've explained the autopilot on the G1000 and how all the symbology works. So I'm not going to go over it all again today. So just be sure that we are in nav mode. So the plane is I'm not doing anything. I'm not touching the controls. I am going to pull the throttles gently back, because you can see the RPM was flashing red. So we're going to climb out further to 2,000 feet. And we will do it at a vertical speed of 500 feet a minute. So we are now flying directly towards, or it's doing an intersection course actually, look. Because we were quite late making our turn, we missed the turn on the flight plan, but the autopilot is clever enough to intersect the original plan, and it will get back over the line and then start turning right to match it in a moment. And there it goes. And notice it's still doing the climbing program as well that we gave it at the same time, so it's quite happy. So this is lateral navigation, this is vertical navigation. So notice we're getting a bit slow. I'm going to open the engine back up. So we're now accelerating, and I'm going to raise the flaps, and which reduces the drag, meaning we can go that much faster. Okay, so we're now flying towards, you can see the island off in the distance, Guernsey in the Channel Islands. In a few minutes, Jersey Tower will tell us that we are leaving their airspace. And then from then on, until we enter the airspace of Guernsey, it's really up to us to handle our navigation. So let's go and have a look at the map while we're waiting. So we took off. and we're on our way over to Guernsey. Should we have a look outside? Flight sim's very pretty, isn't it? So this is Jersey we are leaving behind. We've just taken off from the runway over there. We've done a left turn, come back, and now we're on the track over to Guernsey. Very shortly you will hear the Jersey Tower confirm that we are leaving their airspace. Sit back down in the seat so we can see under the wing and say goodbye to Jersey. They've even got the rock formations under the water. It looks amazing, doesn't it?
Cessna Bravo Echo Kilo leaving my airspace. Frequency change approved.
Okay, so we're going to acknowledge the frequency change and you will see the frequencies switch again.
Jersey Tower Cessna Golf, Juliet Bravo Echo Kilo frequency change.
So now we can tune to any other frequency we like. So commonly when you are flying away from any controlled airspace at low level, a visual flight rules flight, so you're not using instrument flight, you're not flying any of the corridors high in the sky or anything like that, you would tune to 122.800 if you're in uncontrolled airspace, which is the Unicom frequency. Or at least it's the Unicom frequency used by most of the virtual air traffic control systems in existence on the internet. In flight sim, nothing exists. You can't talk to other pilots. Yeah, so you're kind of in limbo at this point, and you can get on with flying your flight as you want to. You only worry with VFR flights about talking to the tower again when you get near to your destination airfield. So let's talk to Guernsey now. So we can go to the nearest airport list on the ATC, where we can see Jersey is the closest at the moment, Guernsey is next. So we're going to talk to Guernsey, and we get the option to tune into the Jersey Tower on 125.205, so we'll do that. Now we have tuned the radio into 125.205, we can talk to them. So we can request a full stop landing, which is what we're going to do.
Jersey Tower Cessna Golf, Juliet Bravo.
So this is
Echo
us
Kilo,
asking
14
the tower.
Southeast, 2,000 feet to land.
Cessna Golf, Juliet Bravo Echo Kilo Jersey Tower. Altimeter tree 0.68, wind 040 at 15. Enter left traffic runway 09er.
Okay, so let's unpack what just happened. We talked to Jersey Tower, we communicated who we are, our aircraft type and our call sign. We told them we are 14 miles away from them from the southeast at 2,000 feet altitude and we want to land. Jersey replied, again with our identity, confirmed who they are. They then gave us the QNH reading for the air pressure at Jersey in the airfield, which we can then program into. And again, you have to acknowledge everything you hear, so we repeat it back. So we can program this frequency in, or sorry, this barometric pressure into the altimeter. And I can't remember where it is on this aircraft. Can we do it directly on? We can't do it directly on the altimeter. Where is it? I'm going to have to look this up, aren't I? It's the transponder stuff. Please excuse me while I go on a tour of the functionality of the Cessna. Oh, here we go. Course and barometric pressure. It's here. So can you see a number underneath here? They're asking for 30.68. I completely forgot where that was, I had a blank. So we can roll this and it's already at 30.68. So it's the same barometric pressure we took off at. The reason for making sure it's correct is it calibrates the altimeter. If you notice, as I change the barometric pressure, the height is changing. Yeah? So if you haven't got the correct barometric pressure setting on your altimeter, your aeroplane thinks it's at a different altitude above sea level than it really is, and that could cause an enormous accident, especially if you're in low visibility conditions. Okay, so they're also telling us the wind is 40 degrees, 15 knots, and they're asking us to enter the left traffic for runway 09. So let's go and see what that means. This is runway 09. What they mean by left traffic is the pattern that will turn left towards runway 09. So Little Navmap can help us with that. If we go and right click on the airfield, we can add the traffic pattern and it will draw a nice diagram in. So we want runway 9, we want the left traffic pattern, and you can put in the leg lengths you want. It's about 2 miles and 1 mile's fine for a Cessna. And you say OK. And that's drawn us a nice diagram. Yep. So we've got 2 miles long by 1 mile wide. So entering the left traffic pattern, we want to go around and come in then. So we are going to go back to heading mode. We're going to leave our flight plan behind from the GPS. We're going to go back to heading mode in the autopilot. And we're going to turn the aircraft, if I can get there ahead of the aircraft getting there, to north. And we'll see what that looks like on the map. So we're going to shortcut straight across and then enter the traffic pattern. It's quite a windy day, it's 13 knot wind. You have to bear in mind the wind it shows you in Little Navmap is local to your aircraft. It may not be that windy on the ground, and you can find that out by looking on what the air traffic control told you. It's 15 knots on the ground, 40 degrees. So it's almost the same as at 2,000 feet. So we are going to have a component of that. Looking at it is going to be crosswind. It should be fine. It's only going to be about 7 or 8 knots across the aircraft, so we might have to crab a little bit towards the runway, but it won't be too bad. So we won't hear anything from air traffic control now until we kind of get to about here. So when we fly around, they'll be watching us. When we enter the pattern and get to about here, they'll give us our clearance to turn in and go and land. So because they're saying make left traffic runway 09. In other words, go enter the pattern turning left towards runway 9. And they'll keep an eye on us, and they will suddenly get back in touch with us when we're in the right kind of place in the sky that they need to give us an instruction. So let's look up over the nose. What can we see? So if we look out of the wing, there's the airfield. So we're going to fly down the left hand side of the airfield and then come round and land. So we're just going to follow the instructions. So you can see on a normal pattern there is an entry point into the pattern. You can't just join it anywhere usually. And on a normal chart I wouldn't be able to cross what might be the departure runway at 2,000 feet. I'd probably have to be a lot higher than that. But we're not going to get into that today with all the whys and wherefores of general restricted airspace regions and all that kind of thing. We're just going to fly around and show you how the ATC works, because the game doesn't enforce that kind of level of detail anyway. Okay, so let's turn left to about 272 degrees, which should hold us against the wind hopefully. So So we're rolling the heading round to 272. We're going to start descending as well. So we're going to come down to 1,000 feet at a vertical speed of 500 feet a minute. So we're going to come down to 1,000 feet, 500 feet a minute. We're dropping. We're accelerating too hard, so we're going to pull the engine back. That was probably a bit extreme, wasn't it? We'll hold to 100 knots-ish. My throttles are not wanting to behave. Okay, there we go. Oh, I've missed the turn in, but you get the idea. So, I'm going to enter the pattern. In fact, I'm not going to cheat. I'm going to go around the other way. We're entering the pattern incorrectly. So let's roll the compass round. This is quite nice because we get to do some sightseeing while I'm turning. Oh, there's a van driving along the track there. And we keep rolling the heading all the way round. And this should line us back up. It's quite a nice way to do the detour, to be honest. Okay, let's just... It's a race between the marker for the heading and us at the moment. So we're just coming down to 1,000 feet. The plane will level itself out at 1,000 feet. We don't need to worry about that. So we're probably needing to come through... Yeah, we're looking good. We'll let it go for 150 degrees because that'll pull us down here somewhere, and then we'll roll around the rest of the direction into the pattern. If I hadn't been talking, I wouldn't have missed the turn. It's always the problem when you're describing things. It's like where I've missed the acknowledgements to air traffic control. It's because I was busy talking at the time. So we're going to turn right round to 272 degrees in a moment. So we can look at those radiuses to know when to do it, and this kind of now is about right. So let's go 272. So I'm rolling the heading knob to 272. 230, 240, 250, 260, 272. In fact, we've done it a bit early, so we'll level out earlier so we can intercept the line. But we're in broadly the right place in the sky. So if we look out the window, we can see there's the airfield. We're still on autopilot. We haven't touched the controls since we took off. When we get onto the base leg before we turn into land, we will switch the autopilot off.
Cessna Bravo Echo Kilo
There we go.
030 at 8. Cleared to land runway 09er.
So did you notice we were given clearance when we became parallel with the end of the runway on the downwind leg? So we don't need to talk to air traffic control anymore. We have got permission to land. Our only concern now is to give ourselves enough room to come in and descend and land. So another trick, if you're looking at the compass, notice there are markers on the quadrants of the compass, so we know a 90-degree turn left is going to be to south in this case. So we'll do that. I'm going to come off the autopilot now and fly it by hand. So just a nice, neat, coordinated turn. Notice also a magenta line shows your turn rate, and it's the angle you'll be pointing in 6 seconds, I think it is normally. So there's our south. Now we can look out the side and we can see the runway, so we can see when to turn in. And we can start slowing down. We'll start turning again. This is always a problem with flight sim, with if you don't have a virtual reality headset. It's very difficult to judge the turn-in. It's much easier with VR because you can just look at the runway. Okay, so flaps down.
500.
We'll sit up a little bit. I just caught the throttle with my hand by accident. That's the markers you can hear. I'm not going to get into what the markers are today. So just steering for the centre line, slowly descending, coming off the speed. And we're down. So then we steer to counteract the wind. Raise the flaps back up. And we roll until we receive further instruction. We'll probably be given instruction when we get to the next taxiway, which is probably this one. But we'll go to exit anyway and see what happens. There we go. So we don't have to acknowledge that one. So we're already turning for the taxiway.
Cessna Bravo Echo Kilo, contact ground on 121.805.
Okay, so we acknowledge the ground
Going
handoff.
to 121.805 Cessna Bravo Echo Kilo.
Then we can tune Jersey ground. Request taxi to parking.
Guernsey ground, Cessna Golf, Juliet Bravo Echo Kilo taxi to parking.
Cessna Golf, Juliet Bravo Echo Kilo taxi to general aviation parking via taxiway Bravo Foxtrot.
So we will acknowledge that before we go and have a look.
Taxiing to general
Bravo
aviation
and
parking via
Foxtrot.
taxiway
So let's
Bravo
have a look.
Foxtrot, Cessna
Normally you
Bravo
would have a
Echo
chart of the airfield before you did the flight. So general aviation parking. So they want us to go Bravo and Foxtrot. Oh, that's Echo Foxtrot. So they want us over here somewhere. Bravo Foxtrot. Oh, this, unless, yeah, Foxtrot is all the way along here. So there's no other parking, is there? So they must mean... That's interesting. So they want us in here, I guess, number 19. Okay, we're going to number 19. So we're going to turn right, and then it's the third on the left. That's the first. That's the second. Just check this before we turn in there. Yeah, it's right here. Just sit down. Oh, they're waiting for us, look. We have a welcoming committee, and they're waving us in, look, to help us steer. And the guy on the right looks like he's very bored. Or girl, I should say. There we go. So we put the parking brake on, and we basically reverse what we did earlier. So to cut the engine, the best way to do it is to pull the mixture, which cleans the fuel from the engine. It burns the unused fuel that's left. Then we can turn the ignition off. We can turn the lights off, We can turn the avionics off. Oops. Pitot heat off as well. So off, 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 off. Avionics off and battery off. And we're back to where we started. Except we're on Guernsey instead of Jersey. So that was a description of how the air traffic control works in the game for a visual flight rules flight. And we were using the Cessna C172 with the G1000 Autopilot, or avionics suite I should say. And yeah, hopefully you found that interesting. As soon as I can, which will probably be a few days time, I'll record an IFR flight, an instrument flight rules flight with the Airbus, using air traffic control with the whole story around going between sectors and approach and departures and the whole bit. So it should be good. Anyway, I'll see you all soon. Take care.